The morning sun cast long shadows across the military firing range as 17-year-old Maya Chen stepped out of her father's old pickup truck. The dust swirled around her worn sneakers as she adjusted the strap of her small backpack. The imposing gates of Fort Bradley stretched before her, with armed guards checking identification and vehicles entering the secure facility. Maya had been planning this moment for months. After saving every dollar from her part-time job at the local diner, she had finally scraped together enough money to book a session at the civilian shooting range that operated within the military base. Her dream was simple, but ambitious. She wanted to become the first person in her family to join the military, specifically the elite Navy SEALs program that had recently opened to women. The receptionist at the range office looked up from her computer screen with raised eyebrows when Maya approached the counter. "Can I help you, sweetie?" the woman asked, her tone suggesting she expected Maya to ask for directions rather than range time. "I have a booking for the advanced tactical range," Maya said confidently, sliding her printed confirmation across the counter. "Session starts in 15 minutes. The receptionist examined the paperwork with growing surprise. "This is for the SEAL qualification course setup. Are you sure you have the right booking? This costs $800 for a 3-hour session." Maya nodded firmly. "I've been saving for 8 months. I want to test myself against the same targets and distances that Navy SEAL candidates face during their training." Word of the unusual booking quickly spread through the facility. By the time Maya was escorted to the range, a small crowd had gathered. Among them stood Colonel James Morrison, a decorated veteran with 30 years of service and a reputation for being one of the toughest instructors on the base. His weathered face bore the scars of multiple deployments, and his steely gray eyes had seen countless young recruits come and go. When the range officer explained the situation, Colonel Morrison let out a hearty laugh that echoed across the concrete facility. "A teenage girl wants to tackle the SEAL course?" he chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "Does she have any idea what she's getting herself into?" The colonel had spent the last 5 years helping to develop the Navy SEAL training protocols. The course Maya had booked included precision shooting at distances ranging from 50 to 800 yards, rapid-fire scenarios, and targets that simulated real combat situations. Even experienced military personnel found the course challenging, with a pass rate of less than 30% among active duty soldiers. "Sir, she's paid in full and has all the proper safety certifications," the range officer explained diplomatically. "Her background check came back clean, and she's completed the required safety course." Colonel Morrison walked over to where Maya was unpacking her equipment. She had brought her grandfather's old hunting rifle, a well-maintained but outdated bolt-action weapon that looked almost primitive compared to the high-tech firearms typically used on the course. "Young lady," the colonel said, his voice carrying the authority of decades in command, "this isn't a carnival shooting gallery. The SEAL qualification course is designed to push elite warriors to their limits. Are you absolutely certain you want to waste your money on this?" Maya looked up at the imposing figure before her. Despite being barely 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighing maybe 120 pounds, she met his gaze without flinching. "With respect, sir, I didn't save for 8 months to back down now. I've studied every manual, watched every training video, and practiced at my local range 6 days a week for the past year." The colonel's expression softened slightly at her determination, but his skepticism remained evident. "Practice at a local range is very different from what we have here. These targets move, appear at unexpected angles, and simulate real combat stress. The longest shot is 800 yards in variable wind conditions." Maya began assembling her rifle with practiced efficiency. Her movements were smooth and confident, showing familiarity with the weapon that surprised the watching soldiers. "My grandfather taught me to shoot when I was 8 years old," she explained while checking her scope. "He was a Marine sniper in Vietnam. He always told me that shooting isn't about the weapon. It's about understanding yourself, and your environment. The colonel watched her preparation with growing interest. Despite his initial dismissal, he could see that this wasn't some impulsive teenage adventure. Maya's equipment was well maintained, her stance showed proper training, and her focus was absolute. Still, intellectual understanding and practical application were vastly different things. "I'll tell you what," Colonel Morrison said, crossing his arms. "I'll personally oversee your session. If you can hit even half the targets on this course, I'll arrange for you to meet with our recruitment officer. But if you fail, I want you to promise me you'll consider a different career path. Deal?" Maya extended her hand for a firm handshake. "Deal, sir. But I think you might be surprised by what happens today." The range itself was intimidating in its scope and complexity. Steel targets were positioned at various distances and angles, some partially concealed behind barriers that simulated urban combat environments. Electronic systems controlled moving targets that would appear for only seconds at a time. Wind flags fluttered along the course, indicating the constantly shifting conditions that would affect long-range shots. As Maya took her position at the firing line, more personnel gathered to watch. Word had spread throughout the base about the young civilian attempting the SEAL course, and curiosity had drawn soldiers, instructors, and support staff to witness what many expected to be an expensive lesson in humility. Colonel Morrison explained the course structure while Maya adjusted her shooting position. "You'll face 30 targets total. 10 are stationary precision shots at distances from 100 to 800 yards. 10 are moving targets that simulate battlefield conditions. The final 10 are rapid engagement scenarios where multiple targets appear simultaneously, and you must prioritize threats correctly." Maya nodded, chambering her first round with steady hands. The watching crowd fell silent as she settled into her shooting stance. Her grandfather's old rifle looked almost comical against the backdrop of the high-tech military range, but Maya handled it with the confidence of someone who had been shooting for nearly a decade. The first target appeared at 100 yards, a relatively easy shot for someone with basic marksmanship skills. Maya barely seemed to aim before firing, and the distinctive ping of bullet-meeting steel rang across the range. The electronic scoring system immediately displayed a perfect center hit. "Lucky shot," someone in the crowd muttered, but Colonel Morrison was already paying closer attention. The targets progressed in difficulty, and Maya adapted to each challenge without apparent strain. At 200 yards, she accounted for a slight crosswind that many observers hadn't even noticed. At 400 yards, she took nearly a minute to study wind conditions and calculate her shot, then fired with unwavering confidence. By the time she reached the 600-yard mark, the murmuring from the watching crowd had completely stopped. Every shot had found its mark, many scoring perfect center hits that would have impressed even veteran snipers. Colonel Morrison found himself leaning forward, genuinely invested in Maya's performance. The 800-yard target represented the course's ultimate challenge. At that distance, factors like humidity, temperature, and minute wind changes could throw off even the most skilled marksman. Maya spent several minutes studying the conditions, making minute adjustments to her scope, and controlling her breathing. When she finally fired, the bullet seemed to hang in the air for an eternity before the distant ping confirmed another perfect hit. The watching crowd erupted in surprised applause, but Maya remained focused on the course ahead. "That completes the precision phase," Colonel Morrison announced, his voice betraying a hint of admiration. "Next, we move to moving targets." The moving target phase would test Maya's ability to lead targets, adjust for speed and direction, and maintain accuracy under time pressure. These were skills that typically took months of intensive training to master, even for experienced soldiers. As the first moving target began its programmed path across the range, Maya tracked its movement with smooth precision. Her shot seemed to anticipate where the target would be, rather than chasing where it had been. Another perfect hit. Colonel Morrison checked the scoring system twice, unable to believe what he was witnessing. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen a civilian, let alone a teenager, demonstrate such consistent accuracy under these conditions. The crowd of watchers continued to grow as word spread throughout the base. Off-duty soldiers, instructors, and even base command personnel began arriving to witness what was becoming a truly remarkable performance. Maya remained completely absorbed in her task, seemingly unaware of the attention she was attracting. Target after target fell to her precise shooting. Moving targets, stationary precision shots, and complex scenarios that required split-second decision-making, Maya handled each challenge with the calm competence of a seasoned professional. As the session continued, Colonel Morrison found his skepticism transforming into genuine amazement. This young woman wasn't just lucky or naturally talented. She was demonstrating skills that he had seen only among the most elite marksmen in the military. The final phase of the course awaited, and everyone on the range knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. Maya Chen had already exceeded every expectation, but the most challenging part of the SEAL qualification course still lay ahead. The rapid engagement phase of the SEAL qualification course was designed to simulate the chaos and pressure of real combat situations. Unlike the methodical precision of long-range shooting, this section demanded instant target identification, threat assessment, and split-second decision-making under extreme time pressure. Colonel Morrison approached Maya as she prepared for the final phase. His earlier amusement had completely disappeared, replaced by the focused attention of a professional evaluating another professional. "This next section is different from anything you've faced so far," he explained seriously. "Multiple targets will appear simultaneously. Some represent hostile threats, others are civilians or friendlies. You have to identify and engage only the legitimate targets while avoiding collateral damage." Maya wiped perspiration from her forehead and nodded. The physical demands of maintaining perfect shooting form for 2 hours were beginning to show, but her concentration remained unwavering. "How much time do I have for each scenario?" "That's the challenge," the colonel replied. "Some scenarios give you 30 seconds, others only 5. The targets disappear if you don't engage them quickly enough. But shooting the wrong target results in automatic failure for that sequence." The watching crowd had grown substantially. Word of Maya's unprecedented performance had reached the base commander's office, and now senior officers were arriving to witness the conclusion of what had become the most talked-about event at Fort Bradley in months. Major General Patricia Walsh, the base commander herself, stood among the observers with an expression of keen interest. The first rapid engagement scenario activated with a sharp electronic beep. 5 targets popped up simultaneously at various distances and angles. Maya's eyes swept the field, instantly categorizing each silhouette. 3 represented armed combatants. 1 showed a civilian with raised hands, and 1 depicted a friendly soldier signaling for assistance. In the space of 7 seconds, Maya fired 3 precise shots. Each hostile target dropped with the characteristic ping of accurate hits, while the civilian and friendly targets remained untouched. The crowd murmured appreciatively, but Maya was already preparing for the next challenge. Scenario after scenario tested different aspects of combat decision-making. Some required her to engage multiple threats in order of priority, closer targets before distant ones, or armed opponents before those without weapons. Others tested her ability to shoot around obstacles while avoiding hitting protected civilians positioned nearby. Colonel Morrison found himself genuinely impressed by more than just Maya's marksmanship. Her tactical thinking showed a sophisticated understanding of combat priorities that typically took years of military training to develop. She consistently chose the optimal engagement sequence, minimizing exposure time while neutralizing threats efficiently. "Where did you learn tactical thinking like this?" he asked during a brief pause between scenarios. Maya reloaded her rifle with practiced efficiency. My grandfather didn't just teach me to shoot, sir. He taught me to think like a soldier. He said that in combat, the person who thinks fastest and most clearly has the best chance of survival. We spent hours analyzing scenarios and discussing tactical decisions. The colonel nodded thoughtfully. Maya's grandfather had clearly provided education that went far beyond basic marksmanship. The strategic thinking she demonstrated suggested exposure to military doctrine and combat theory at a level most civilians never encountered. The scenarios grew progressively more complex. One particularly challenging sequence required Maya to engage targets that appeared in rapid succession while simulated friendly forces moved through the area. She had to time her shots to avoid any possibility of hitting the moving friendlies while still neutralizing the threats before they could engage her position. Maya's performance remained flawless. Her ability to process multiple variables simultaneously, target location, friendly positions, engagement angles, and time constraints, impressed even the most experienced observers. Several seasoned instructors began taking notes, recognizing techniques that could benefit their own training programs. The psychological pressure of performing before such a distinguished audience might have rattled most people, but Maya seemed to thrive under the attention. If anything, her accuracy improved as the scenarios became more demanding. Her confidence grew with each successful engagement, and her movements became more fluid and assured. "I've never seen anything like this," whispered Master Sergeant Rodriguez to his colleague. "She's shooting like someone with 10 years of combat experience, but she's just a kid." The penultimate scenario was designed to be the most stressful of the entire course. 8 targets would appear in random sequence over 45 seconds, with some friendly and some hostile silhouettes mixed throughout. The targets would move unpredictably, and several would appear simultaneously to force difficult split-second decisions. Maya took a deep breath and centered herself. This was the moment that separated competent shooters from exceptional ones. The scenario began with targets appearing at rapid intervals from multiple directions. Maya's response was immediate and precise. She engaged threats in order of priority while tracking the movement of friendly silhouettes, never once hesitating or second-guessing her decisions. Her final shot of the scenario dropped the last hostile target just as the timer reached 43 seconds. Every threat had been neutralized, and every friendly target remained untouched. The crowd erupted in spontaneous applause, but Maya barely seemed to notice. She was already preparing mentally for the final challenge. Colonel Morrison checked the scoring system one more time, hardly believing what he was seeing. Maya had achieved a perfect score through 29 of 30 targets. No one in the 5-year history of the SEAL qualification course at Fort Bradley had ever come close to such performance. Even active duty SEALs typically scored in the 70 to 80% range. The final scenario was known informally as the impossible shot. It required engaging 3 widely separated targets within 8 seconds, with each target visible for only 2 seconds before disappearing. The targets were positioned at different ranges and angles, requiring rapid adjustment of both aim and mental calculations for bullet drop and wind drift. Many experienced marksmen considered this scenario more of a psychological test than a practical one. The time constraints were so severe that most shooters failed simply due to hesitation or overthinking. Success required absolute confidence and the ability to trust instinctive calculations over careful deliberation. Maya studied the target positions during her brief preparation time. At distances of 200, 500, and 700 yards, the 3 targets formed a triangle that would test her ability to quickly transition between drastically different shooting solutions. "This is where most people fail," Colonel Morrison said quietly. "Even if you don't complete this scenario, your performance today has been extraordinary." Maya smiled for the first time in hours. "Sir, I didn't come here to fail on the last shot." The final scenario began with an electronic tone. The first target appeared at 700 yards, requiring immediate compensation for distance and wind. Maya fired almost instantly, trusting calculations she had performed thousands of times during practice. The target disappeared just as the metallic ping confirmed her hit. Target 2 appeared at the medium range of 500 yards. Maya's rifle swung smoothly to the new position, her muscle memory automatically adjusting for the different distance. Her second shot found its mark with 2 seconds remaining. The final target popped up at 200 yards, an almost easy shot under normal circumstances, but requiring absolute precision under the time pressure. Maya's third and final shot echoed across the range just as the timer reached 7 seconds. 3 distinct pings confirmed 3 perfect hits. Maya had completed the impossible scenario with 1 second to spare. The silence that followed lasted for several heartbeats before the entire crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Even the most skeptical observers were forced to acknowledge that they had witnessed something truly remarkable. Maya Chen had not only completed the SEAL qualification course, she had achieved a perfect score that no one thought possible. Colonel Morrison stood in stunned silence, processing what he had just observed. In his 3 decades of military service, he had never seen a performance that so thoroughly exceeded his expectations. This young woman had just demonstrated shooting skills that surpassed those of most special forces operators. Major General Walsh stepped forward from the crowd of observers, her expression reflecting both amazement and professional interest. "Colonel Morrison, I think we need to have a serious conversation about this young woman's future." Maya finally allowed herself to relax, setting down her grandfather's rifle with hands that trembled slightly from exhaustion and adrenaline. She had proven something important to herself today, but she was beginning to realize that the implications of her performance might extend far beyond her personal goals. The crowd of observers began to disperse, but many lingered to congratulate Maya or simply to process what they had witnessed. Several instructors approached Colonel Morrison with questions about recruiting protocols and accelerated training programs. As the immediate excitement began to settle, Maya found herself wondering what would happen next. She had come to the range with a simple goal: to test herself against military standards. But her perfect performance had clearly exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own. The afternoon sun was beginning to set over Fort Bradley, casting long shadows across the firing range. Maya's 3-hour session had extended well beyond its scheduled time, but no one had complained about the delay. They had all been witness to something extraordinary, a performance that would be talked about for years to come. Colonel Morrison approached Maya as she packed her equipment, his expression thoughtful and respectful. The condescending skepticism of the morning had been completely replaced by professional admiration and curiosity about what the future might hold. Colonel Morrison found himself in an unusual position as he watched Maya carefully clean and pack her grandfather's rifle. For 30 years, he had prided himself on accurately assessing potential soldiers within minutes of meeting them. His judgments about character, capability, and potential had proven reliable countless times throughout his career. Yet this 17-year-old girl had just shattered every assumption he had made about her. "Maya," he said, using her first name for the first time, "what you accomplished today goes beyond exceptional. In 5 years of operating this course, no one has achieved a perfect score. Most active duty SEALs score between 70 and 80% on their first attempt." Maya looked up from her equipment, still processing the magnitude of what she had achieved. "I just did what my grandfather taught me, sir. He always said that shooting is 10% technique and 90% mental discipline." Major General Walsh approached their conversation, her command presence evident even in the casual setting of the firing range. "Miss Chen, I'm Patricia Walsh, base commander. I've been in the military for 25 years, and I've never seen anything like your performance today. Have you given serious thought to military service?" "Yes, ma'am. Maya replied respectfully. "That's why I'm here. I want to join the Navy and eventually try out for the SEALs program when I turn 18 next month." The general exchanged glances with Colonel Morrison. Both had been thinking the same thing. Maya's abilities were too exceptional to waste through normal recruitment channels. Standard military training might actually hold her back, rather than develop her existing skills. "The thing is," Colonel Morrison said carefully, "your performance today suggests that normal entry-level training might not be appropriate for someone with your capabilities. Have you considered accelerated programs or direct entry into specialized units?" Maya had not considered such possibilities because she hadn't known they existed. Her research had focused on standard enlistment procedures and basic qualification requirements. The idea that her performance might open doors to unusual opportunities had never crossed her mind. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing the conversation, stepped forward with evident excitement. "General Walsh, if I may suggest something, we have that new pilot program for exceptional civilian recruits. Maya would be perfect for it." The pilot program Rodriguez referenced was a classified initiative designed to fast-track civilians with extraordinary specialized skills directly into advanced military roles. Typically reserved for individuals with rare technical expertise or languages, it had never been used for someone with Maya's particular combination of marksmanship and tactical thinking. "That program requires approval from the Pentagon," General Walsh noted thoughtfully. "But given what we've witnessed today, I think we could make a compelling case." Maya listened to this discussion with growing amazement. When she had booked her session at the firing range, her highest hope had been to prove to herself that she could handle military-level challenges. The possibility of bypassing standard training and moving directly into advanced programs had been beyond her imagination. "What would that mean exactly?" Maya asked, trying to understand the implications of what was being discussed. Colonel Morrison explained the basics of accelerated military programs. Instead of spending months on basic training that would teach you skills you already possess, you would move directly into specialized training with experienced operators. Your timeline to reach advanced units would be compressed from years to months. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Sarah Martinez, the base's chief recruitment officer, who had been summoned after word of Maya's performance reached the recruitment center. Captain Martinez brought with her a tablet containing various military aptitude tests and preliminary paperwork. "Miss Chen," Captain Martinez said after introductions, "I understand you're interested in military service. Before we can discuss any special programs, we need to assess your performance in other areas. Would you be willing to take some additional tests?" Maya agreed readily, curious about what other challenges the military might present. The tests Captain Martinez administered covered areas like spatial reasoning, mechanical comprehension, leadership scenarios, and strategic thinking. These were designed to identify individuals with potential for advancement into specialized roles. While Maya worked through the tests, Colonel Morrison found himself reflecting on the afternoon's events. He had entered the day expecting to witness an expensive lesson in humility for an overconfident teenager. Instead, he was now part of discussions about fast-tracking that same teenager into elite military units. The transformation in his thinking represented more than just changing his mind about Maya's abilities. It forced him to reconsider his assumptions about unconventional candidates and the potential value of looking beyond traditional recruiting pools. Maya completed the additional tests with the same focused competence she had demonstrated on the firing range. Her scores in strategic thinking and spatial reasoning ranked in the top percentile, consistent with her exceptional shooting performance. Captain Martinez reviewed the results with obvious satisfaction. "These scores, combined with your range performance, paint a picture of someone with exceptional military potential," Captain Martinez announced. "I'm prepared to recommend you for several specialized programs." As the sun set over Fort Bradley, Maya found herself surrounded by military officers discussing possibilities she had never imagined. The simple goal of testing herself against military standards had evolved into conversations about accelerated careers and elite units. General Walsh made the decision that would change everything. "Colonel Morrison, I want you to personally mentor Miss Chen through the application process for the Advanced Placement Program. Captain Martinez, prepare the paperwork for expedited processing. I'm going to make some calls to ensure this gets the attention it deserves." Over the following weeks, Maya's story spread throughout military circles. Video footage of her perfect performance on the SEAL qualification course was reviewed by training specialists and recruitment experts. Her achievement sparked discussions about identifying and developing exceptional talent among civilian populations. The Pentagon approved Maya's application for the accelerated program within days of receiving the documentation. Military officials who reviewed her performance agreed that her skills were too valuable to waste on standard entry-level training. Maya's transformation from small-town teenager to military prodigy attracted attention from unexpected sources. Military academies inquired about scholarship opportunities, special operations units requested meetings, and training specialists wanted to study her techniques to improve their own programs. Colonel Morrison found himself becoming more than just a mentor to Maya. He became her advocate and protector, ensuring that the sudden attention didn't overwhelm someone who was still, fundamentally, a 17-year-old girl facing enormous life changes. 6 months after that memorable day at the firing range, Maya Chen graduated from an accelerated training program designed specifically for exceptional recruits. Her performance throughout training continued to exceed every standard, and she earned recognition as one of the most promising young operators in recent military history. The girl who had faced Colonel Morrison's skeptical laughter had become a symbol of potential waiting to be discovered in unexpected places. Her story inspired changes in military recruitment practices and challenged assumptions about where exceptional talent might be found. Maya's grandfather, watching her graduation ceremony, wore his old Marine dress uniform with pride that transcended words. His granddaughter had not only achieved her dream of military service, but had redefined what was possible for someone her age. The rifle skills he had taught her during childhood hunting trips had become the foundation for a military career that promised to be extraordinary. Colonel Morrison, speaking at Maya's graduation, reflected on the lessons her story had taught him about assumptions, potential, and the importance of remaining open to unexpected possibilities. "Sometimes," he told the assembled audience, "the most important thing we can do is get out of the way and let excellence reveal itself." Maya Chen's perfect performance on the SEAL qualification course became legendary within military circles, but more importantly, it opened doors to a future that neither she nor anyone else could have imagined when she first approached that firing range with her grandfather's old rifle and 8 months' worth of savings. Her story continued to inspire other young people to pursue their dreams despite skepticism from others. Maya had proven that with dedication, proper training, and unwavering determination, even the most ambitious goals could become reality. The teenager who had faced ridicule for booking an expensive session at a military firing range had become a decorated military operator whose skills were recognized at the highest levels of the armed forces. Her journey from civilian to elite soldier had taken less than a year, but the impact of her achievement would influence military training and recruitment for years to come. Maya's success validated her grandfather's belief that true marksmanship was more about mental discipline than equipment or formal training. Her perfect performance had demonstrated that exceptional talent, properly developed, could emerge from the most unexpected places and achieve the most ambitious goals. The story of the colonel who laughed at a young girl's firing range booking became a cautionary tale about the danger of making assumptions based on appearances. It also became an inspiring example of what could happen when determination met opportunity and when experienced leaders were willing to admit they had been wrong about someone's potential.